Let us execute an immediate, sweeping analytical vector shift away from traditional judicial legal traps, localized domestic crime loops, and isolated country manners, and plunge straight into the high-octane, calculation-heavy tracking grids of macro-societal techno-dystopian isolation traps, weaponized genetic compatibility loops, and the fiercely protective, dangerously fragile world of an endangered collection of raw algorithmic trauma survival and biological matchmaking networks running a raw tactical survival loop. We are crossing the threshold directly into the hyper-monitored, paranoia-slicked parameters of a scorched, high-density speculative near-future layout, exploring the lethal analytical parameters of a devastating corporatized biometric reconstruction and tracking matrix with the One, the exceptional pulse-pounding techno-thriller and comprehensive dark future endurance compendium, engineered by the absolute undisputed global sovereign of breathtaking psychological secrets, razor-sharp narrative traps, and high-velocity structural friction, John Mars. This high-stakes narrative tracking sequence delivers an exceptional look at an operational crossroad where an endangered collection of primary civilian assets running an unyielding truth extraction loop, a calculating manipulative shadow network of a tech monopoly matchmaking infrastructure, and an absolute defense against an encroaching algorithm-confined psychological erasure containment zone collide at terminal velocity. Let us map the strategic narrative grid. If you are an elite enthusiast of high-octane, slow-burn creative journeys, where endangered, hyper-observant, protective speculative protagonists must navigate an absolute maze of rigged character perspectives, corrupt corporate data profiling files, and a deadly ring of active personal deadline frame-ups while running a blind survival loop inside a completely compromised geopolitical relationship ecosystem, where an analytical mind uses deep psychological profiling, calculated algorithmic rescue boundaries, and absolute emotional stamina to outmaneuver an invisible predatory executioner asset, weaponizing highly advanced DNA matching timing and state-sponsored data cover-up mechanics, and where the author utilizes an incandescent, meticulously paced locked-in global network incubator tracking vulnerable Soulmate applicants and scarred corporate executives who deploy advanced procedural analysis and clandestine biometric alliances to systematically forge a seemingly impenetrable defense before crossing a terminal exposure milestone, diagnostic routine to test our hero's structural limits. This book is engineered to lock you in. Mars completely dominates the high-precision, unreliable narrator jeopardy meets suffocating narrative erasure puzzles dynamic, capturing the heart-racing intellectual momentum, suffocating blank-page paranoia, and heavy deductive depth popularized by classic and genre vargs like Black Mirror, Blake Crouch, Michael Crichton, and Harlan Coben, while treating realistic baseline terminology logistics, complex dark possessive loyalty arcs, and protective high-density isolation extraction grids with absolute technical mastery. The narrative tracking grid zeroes in on the highly volatile, calculation-heavy baseline of our central legendary powerhouse creative asset, operating under a severe calculation-heavy handicap of a total loss of societal relational immunity, absolute structural liquidation logs, and a hyper-visible targeting canvas within a cutthroat corporate monopoly matrix. Behind our 5 split protagonists' rigorous daily footprints, defensive conversational shields, and sharp observation metrics lies an intricate matrix of hidden structural vulnerabilities, deeply buried survival instincts, and sharp high-stakes tactical maneuvers. Their collective defense mechanisms are locked down tight following an abrupt plot outline deviation sequence, struggling to survive a global matchmaking phenomenon initialized by the company Matcher DNA, their entire analytical focus strictly consumed by monitoring sudden threat vectors from a network of internal distraction forces, parsing complex behavioral shifts in their daily multi-timeline interaction loops, and shielding their vulnerable personal sovereignty nodes from being entirely wiped out by a ruthless corporate-driven profiling offensive. The spark ignites when an unexpected high-frequency structural anomaly breaches their active scanning perimeter. While sorting through a series of routine daily operational constraints inside their highly monitored personal refuges, our primary assets register a total security breach when a simple cotton swab test initializes an irregular descent into active historical misconduct logs, systematically tracking hidden psychopathic profiling metrics, forbidden terminal medical secrets, and unvetted international law enforcement evasion associations, forcing them into a proximity tracking matrix with an oncoming narrative resolution. Behind the tech enterprise's pristine, smooth public relations facade and elite biometric mapping style lies an intricate matrix of severe ideological warfare and a cold, calculation-heavy target containment blueprint. As the hostile adversarial verification phases enter an increasingly lethal terminal tier across a ticking clock timeline matching an active, terrifying societal unraveling, the unauthorized discovery of missing historical truth templates, hidden intimate motivations, and altered tracking templates reveals that their entire romantic sanctuary was an explicitly engineered trap. The standard boundaries of routine marital courtesy and peaceful civilian compliance protocols crumble, and our central protagonists run completely out of standard diplomatic escape vectors. They are thrust directly into an active, invisible war behind closed doors during an isolated global event where a highly manipulative psychological gaslighting matrix launches aggressive countermeasures to permanently suppress their survival data stream and execute their complete systemic erasure. The tactical parameters instantly explode as their social and survival warfare turns completely active, transforming the large executive tech offices, dark intercity terminal stations, and private fortified apartment suites into a volatile psychological pressure cooker and a physical battle zone. Our protective, hyper-vigilant heroes are forced to deploy their massive intuitive tradecraft, elite behavioral mapping skills, and raw physical stamina to preserve their focus before their adversary's relentless, calculation-heavy proximity containment phase permanently deletes their boundaries. The threat vector remains purposeful and resolute, shifting dynamically through precise execution guidelines from initial envelope opening disclosures to final modern-day triple-twist confrontation loops across 5 completely distinct points of view, determined to deploy deep sensory manipulation loops, continuous psychological gaslighting via corporate and familial distraction maneuvers, and persistent dominance to shatter their defense, only to realize their hardened survival protocols and shifting counter-narratives match their opponent's raw tactical speed step for step. Every midnight archival excavation of private database logs, every silent choice to stand off against an electronic apex predator behind standard structural barriers, and every intense moment of channeling raw, unyielding survival mechanics chips away at their reliance on original peaceful rules. What follows is an exceptional high-stakes war of perspective, tactical position, and raw human grit. We watch the Predator Network's deceptive perimeters completely unwrapped as John Mars reveals that the true victory requires more than just surviving an initial week 1 ambush or managing an invasive marital disclosure. It demands an absolute, uncompromising defense of individual dignity, personal truth, and systemic survival against a cold, calculating machine of corporate manipulation and absolute structural supremacy. While our central characters smooth over each other's psychological and defensive blind spots with devastating analytical force, creating a fiercely protective, absolute web of dark possessive loyalty around their building creative survival alliance, a brutal series of close-quarters tactical confrontations and high-stakes midstream point-of-view shifts switches the clock into its terminal phase, proving that deep-seated obsession has tracked them to their final outpost. To survive the impending locked grid trap and permanently secure their sanctuaries, our resilient protagonists must unleash an absolute, unyielding defense of their final boundary lines. It is a high-velocity sci-fi psychological, sci-fi noir techno-suspense, multi-POV serial killer mystery, and high-velocity biometric corporate secret puzzle masterpiece that treats deep relational logistics and intense structural friction with elite precision. The tension here burns with a sharp, calculation-heavy intensity. We are talking about that high-frequency, one unreliable narrator lie triggers a fatal deadline showdown energy, where a sudden pause during an active franchise tactical briefing, an unexpected shift in an adversary's protective physical posture during a high-stakes standoff confrontation, or a heavy possessive realization that an elite intelligence operative has completely mapped your personal coordinates carries massive structural weight. Mars writes with an exceptionally fresh, vivid, and beautifully blunt voice, perfectly capturing the heavy, oppressive atmosphere of a private executive vault before a major corporate fallout, and the distinct, subtle scent of sterile medical clinics, high-tech server racks, smartphone glare, cold sweat, dark adrenaline, and pure, unadulterated suspense. What truly elevates this contemporary instructional marvel into elite territory is the author's unmatched ability to balance complex, high-stakes relationship dynamics and genuine protective power tradecraft alongside a breathtaking narrative pace and deep emotional hooks. Our protagonists don't rely on unbelievable superficial Hollywood superhero action tropes. Their immense situational intelligence, strategic patience, and profound survival instincts match the complexity of the chaotic modern corporate and high society underworld they dominate step for step, making their choices to risk everything feel profoundly authentic and deeply gripping. The pacing moves with calculated momentum, tracking intense conversational standoffs and breathtaking tactical breakthroughs before ratcheting up to an absolute, jaw-dropping conclusion that delivers total, hard-earned advancement to their horizon. The One Expanded Edition is the definitive pro-level upgrade your high-stakes contemporary thriller and intense asset suspense library demands right now. It is elegant, immensely fast-paced, and utterly unputtable. It proves that when your entire sanctuary is targeted by a cold, calculating institutional monster, the most revolutionary play you can execute is to lock your perimeters, trust your elite survival training, and fight like hell with your network to rewrite the data. So, secure your personal reading sanctuary, review your emotional defensive perimeters, open your Kindle, and prepare to track the fleet.